Shut your mouth, or I swear you'll never see daylight again. William Carver's pistol digs into Sunkawakan's temple, rain pounding the barn as her heart races, her mind reeling from the secret she just overheard. Carver and a soldier plotting to frame the Lakota for a fake attack to steal their sacred Black Hills land. Why has this quiet night turned into a deadly trap? Sunkawakan, a 25-year-old Lakota woman, carries the weight of a fractured life. Orphaned after a brutal massacre claimed her family. She bears a mysterious crescent scar on her wrist, a silent question mark from a past she can't recall. Raised as a servant in a white family's home near the Black Hills, she endures daily scorn, her spirit caught between a world that rejects her and a Lakota heritage she barely knows. Yet beneath her worn apron, a fierce heart dreams of roots and redemption. Rain slaps the barn's wooden walls as Sunkawakan sweeps straw, her hands raw from scrubbing. Voices leak through a cracked door, William Carver's low growl and another man's sharp tone. She edges closer, broom forgotten, and catches words that freeze her blood. Hire mercenaries, dress them as Lakota, attack the settlers. Black Hills is ours. Her stomach twists as she realizes they plan to frame her people, to steal sacred land with a massacre. Memories flood back Carver's sneers, calling her savage as she served his meals. Her chest tightens with rage. She steps back, but her foot catches a bucket, sending it clattering. The door flies open. Carver's boots thunder toward her, his pistol gleaming in the dim light. "You heard nothing, understand?" he snarls, pressing the barrel to her forehead. Her knees shake, breath shallow, but her mind screams, the Lakota must know. She nods, eyes wide, as he shoves her back, warning of death if she speaks. Alone, her trembling hands clench. Fear chokes her, but the thought of her people's blood on that land burns hotter. She wipes sweat from her brow, heart pounding with a vow. She'll warn them, no matter the cost. The choice feels like a knife's edge, but she steps toward it, resolved to act despite the terror clawing her insides. Sunkawakan slips into the horse stable, the stench of manure sharp in her nose. Moonlight spills through a broken slat, enough to guide her trembling hands as she scribbles a warning on a scrap of paper. Carver plans to frame Lakota for attack. Black Hills in danger. Her fingers fumble, ink smudging, but she folds the note and tucks it inside her blouse, the paper scratching her skin. Her mind flashes to last month, Carver's fist slamming her shoulder for a broken dish, his voice promising worse. If he finds this, she's dead. She creeps toward the market, pulse racing, eyes darting for Carver's men. At the town square, she spots Amos, a grizzled trader known for carrying letters. "Take this to the Lakota camp," she whispers, slipping him the note and a coin. His nod feels like a lifeline. Back at the ranch, her heart sinks as Grayson's horse stands tethered by the porch, his cold eyes locking onto her as she passes. "You're quiet today," he says, voice like a blade. She forces a smile, her spine icy, and hurries to the kitchen. The note is her only hope, a fragile thread to save her people. She chops carrots, hands shaking, praying Amos moves fast. But Grayson's stare lingers in her mind, a warning that her secret might already be unraveling, her fragile plan teetering on the edge of discovery. Morning sun burns Sunkawakan's eyes as she hauls water buckets, her arms aching but her face blank, hiding the storm inside. She overhears Carver and Grayson by the fence, their voices low. "Caught your messenger, Amos?" Letters burned. Her bucket slips, water splashing her boots, as panic claws her chest. The Lakota won't know. The plan failed. She drags herself through chores, heart sinking with each step, until Carver's shout stops her cold. Inside, now, his office smells of whiskey and smoke. He towers over her, eyes blazing. "Think you're clever?" A fist slams her cheek, pain exploding as she stumbles. "No more games," he growls, kicking her ribs. She curls up, gasping, as he drags her to the stable and locks the door. Darkness swallows her, the pain in her body matched by the crushing weight of failure. Her people are defenseless, and she's trapped. Hours pass, her sobs quieting to shallow breaths. A creak breaks the silence. Margaret Carver slips in, her face unreadable, and slides a crust of bread through the bars. "Eeh," she whispers, her eyes flickering with something pity, maybe guilt. Sunkawakan stares, confused, as Margaret vanishes. The bread sits untouched, but Margaret's strange act plants a seed of doubt. Bruised and broken, Sunkawakan clenches her fists, her resolve flickering back. She failed once, but she's not done fighting. Sunkawakan curls up in the stable's dark corner. Her cheek pulses with pain from Carver's blow, and her ribs ache with every breath. Straw scratches her palms as she shifts. Her fingers brush the crescent scar on her wrist. She traces it, and her eyes sting as she wonders who marked her and why it feels like a lost piece of herself. Memories flood in. Townsfolk hissed, half-breed, as she carried their laundry. Margaret turned away in silence. Her throat tightens, but she presses her hands together and whispers a prayer to spirits she barely knows, begging for strength. Outside, Carver's voice booms about clearing the Black Hills for gold. The words spark a fire in her chest, and her despair hardens into fury. She crawls to the stable door and tugs at the rusty lock with shaking hands, but it holds firm. The cold metal mocks her. Her nails dig into her palms, and frustration wells up. The image of Lakota blood on sacred land keeps her fighting. She slumps back, panting. Her resolve flickers like a flame in the darkness. The lock won't budge tonight, and her body craves rest. But her heart refuses to give up. She clenches her fists and vows to find another way. Hopelessness whispers that she's lost, but her will burns on. Sunkawakan squints through a crack in the stable door and tracks Carver's movements across the yard. His heavy steps fade toward the house at dusk, a routine she's studied for days. Her pulse quickens. She realizes midnight is her best chance to escape. She rummages in the straw and finds a small, rusted knife under a plank. Its edge is dull, but sharp enough. She tucks it into her blouse, and the cold blade presses against her skin, a reminder of the risk. Voices drift from the house. Margaret murmurs softly, and Carver grumbles about keeping her secret buried. Sunkawakan's brow furrows. Her mind races. What does Margaret know about her? The question lingers, but she pushes it aside and focuses on escape. Her heart pounds as she tests the door. Its creak pierces the silence. Fear twists her gut. She pictures Carver's pistol and his fists, but the Lakota's fate drives her forward. She decides to move tonight, no matter the danger. She kneels in the straw and breathes deeply to steady her nerves. Her plan takes shape like a fragile bridge over a chasm. The knife's weight grounds her, and a spark of hope flickers as she prepares to run. One wrong step could end everything, but she's ready. Midnight wraps the ranch in shadow. Sunkawakan eases the stable door open, and its hinges groan softly. She slips into the yard and crouches low. Her bare feet are silent on the damp earth. Lantern light glows in the house. She freezes as Margaret's silhouette crosses a window and pauses, as if sensing her. Sunkawakan holds her breath. Margaret turns away, and no alarm sounds. Sunkawakan darts toward the forest. Thorns snag her skirt and slice her ankles. A dog's bark splits the night. Her heart lurches, and her legs pump faster. She dives behind a boulder as boots crunch nearby. A ranch hand's lantern swings close. "Just the wind," he mutters and trudges back. Sunkawakan exhales. Her chest tightens with panic, but she forces herself up and runs deeper into the trees. The knife bounces against her ribs. Branches whip her face, but she keeps moving, guided by a faint memory of trails to Lakota lands. Each step feels like defiance, a scream against Carver's threats. Her lungs burn, and her feet bleed, but the thought of warning her people drives her on. The forest swallows her, a dangerous sanctuary. She's free from the ranch, but the real peril lies ahead. There's no guarantee she'll reach the Lakota in time. Sunkawakan stumbles through the forest, her breath ragged, and her ankles stinging from thorn scratches. Moonlight barely pierces the dense canopy, but she presses on, guided by a faint memory of a trail to Lakota lands. A wolf's howl echoes, and her heart skips, her hand tightening around the knife in her blouse. She finds a shallow stream and kneels, splashing cold water on her face, wincing as it stings her cuts. Her fingers trace the crescent scar on her wrist, and a pang of longing hits her, a wish to know who she was before the ranch. Hoofbeats thrum in the distance, and she freezes, her pulse racing. She ducks behind a fallen log, mud smearing her hands, and holds her breath as the sound fades. Exhaustion pulls at her limbs, but the thought of Carver's plan, the Lakota unaware, spurs her forward. She stands, legs trembling, and keeps moving, weaving through trees. Her mind churns with fear, but each step feels like a promise to her people. The forest stretches endlessly, and her strength wanes, but she clings to the hope of reaching the camp before dawn, knowing every moment brings her closer to danger or salvation. Sunkawakan emerges from the forest at dawn, her clothes torn and her feet blistered. Smoke rises from a cluster of tents ahead, the Lakota camp. Her chest tightens with relief, but a shadow moves, and a warrior steps forward, his bow drawn. "Stop, outsider." Chaska barks, his eyes hard. Sunkawakan raises her hands, voice hoarse as she pleads, "I'm here to warn you. Carver plans to frame the Lakota for an attack." Chaska's scowl deepens, and he grabs her arm, twisting it. "Why should we trust a white man's servant?" he snaps. She winces but holds his gaze, her voice steady despite the pain. "I'm Lakota, like you." He snorts and binds her wrists with rope, dragging her into the camp. Faces turn, some curious, others hostile, and her cheeks burn under their stares. Chaska shoves her toward a central fire, where a young leader watches, his presence commanding. Her heart pounds, but she straightens, ready to speak. The camp feels both foreign and familiar, stirring a deep ache in her soul. She knows one wrong word could end her chance to save her people. Chaska pushes Sunkawakan to her knees before the fire, and the leader, Wiaka, steps forward, his eyes piercing. "Speak," he says, voice low. Her throat tightens, but she forces out the truth. Carver and Grayson plan to hire men, dress them as Lakota, and attack settlers to steal Black Hills. Wiaka's face remains stone, and Chaska scoffs. She's a spy, raised by whites. Her hands clench, rope biting her wrists, and she snaps. "I've risked my life to come here." Whispers ripple through the crowd. She softens, voice breaking. "I don't belong anywhere, but I can't let our people die." Wiaka studies her, silent, then asks, "Why you?" Before she can answer, a woman's voice cuts through. She's telling the truth. Lillian Moore, a white woman with sharp eyes, steps from the shadows, her notebook clutched tight. Sunkawakan's heart leaps, but Wiaka's gaze narrows. "Prove it," he says. Lillian nods, and Sunkawakan exhales, hope flickering. Chaska grabs her arm, pulling her toward a tent. "You're not free yet," he growls. Her resolve hardens, knowing she must convince Wiaka, despite the distrust surrounding her. Sunkawakan sits on the cold ground inside a tent, her wrists still bound, the rope chafing her skin. Wiaka looms before her, his arms crossed, while Chaska glares from the corner. "Why should we believe you?" Wiaka asks, his voice like stone. Her mouth dries, but she meets his gaze, her heart thudding. "I heard Carver and Grayson myself. They'll frame the Lakota to steal Black Hills. I ran to warn you, risking everything." Chaska snorts, stepping closer. "You're no Lakota. You're their servant." Her cheeks burn, and she leans forward, voice trembling with anger. "I've been spat on, beaten, called savage, but I'm here because I can't let our people die." Wiaka's eyes flicker, but he stays silent. Lillian Moore kneels beside her, her voice steady. "I've tracked Grayson's deals. She's not lying." Sunkawakan's chest tightens with hope, but Wiaka raises a hand. Words aren't proof. He orders her confined, and Chaska drags her to a guarded tent. Her shoulders slump, but Lillian's nod gives her strength. Alone, she rubs her scar, whispering a prayer for courage, determined to make Wiaka listen, even if it costs her everything. Lillian slips into the guarded tent at dusk, her face set with purpose. Sunkawakan looks up, her wrists raw from struggling against the ropes. "They don't trust me," she murmurs, voice heavy. Lillian unties her, her fingers quick. "I've seen Grayson's ledgers. Your story matches." Sunkawakan rubs her wrists, hope sparking, but doubt lingers. "Why help me?" Lillian's eyes soften. "I want justice, same as you." She pulls out a notebook showing scrawled notes about Grayson's bribes. Sunkawakan's pulse quickens as Lillian leans closer. "I know where Carver hides papers, proof of their plan. We need Wiaka to see it." Sunkawakan nods, her fear mixing with resolve. They sneak to Wiaka's tent, where he's sharpening a knife. Lillian speaks first, her voice firm. "There's evidence at an old cabin near the ranch. Let us get it." Wiaka's jaw tightens, but Sunkawakan steps forward, voice steady. "I'll prove I'm with you." His gaze softens slightly, and he agrees but insists Chaska go along. Chaska grumbles, tying Sunkawakan's hands loosely for show. As they leave, her heart pounds with a fragile hope, knowing this chance could change everything or end in disaster. Sunkawakan trudges behind Lillian and Chaska, her bound hands chafing as they near a crumbling cabin in the woods. Dawn breaks, casting long shadows. Lillian points to a loose floorboard inside, her voice low. Carver's papers are there. Sunkawakan's stomach knots, but she nods, slipping through the creaking door. Chaska cuts her ropes, his eyes still wary. "Don't try anything," he mutters. She kneels, prying up the board with trembling fingers, and pulls out a bundle of letters. Her breath catches as she reads. "Hire men. Stage Lakota attack. Secure Black Hills." Her heart races, proof in her hands. Lillian scans another letter, her face paling. It mentions the Order of the Crescent. Sunkawakan's scar tingles, a strange unease settling in. Before she can speak, Chaska hisses, "Horses!" Hoofbeats thunder closer, and Grayson's men burst through the trees, rifles raised. Sunkawakan shoves the letters into her blouse, her pulse hammering. Chaska grabs her arm, pulling her toward a back window. Lillian scrambles behind, but a shout rings out. "There they are!" Sunkawakan's legs burn as they sprint into the forest. The papers her only weapon, but the sound of pursuit grows louder, threatening to crush her fragile victory. Sunkawakan's boots slip on wet leaves as she sprints through the forest. Grayson's men shouting behind her. The letters stuffed in her blouse crinkle, a lifeline she clutches tight. Lillian stumbles beside her, gasping, while Chaska leads, his bow slung across his back. "This way," he hisses, veering toward a ravine. Sunkawakan's lungs burn, but she pushes forward, dodging branches that claw her face. A rifle cracks, and bark splinters near her head. Her heart lurches, and she dives behind a tree, pulling Lillian down. Chaska knocks an arrow, his eyes fierce, and fires, drawing a yelp from the pursuers. "Move," he growls. Sunkawakan grabs Lillian's arm, hauling her up, and they scramble into the ravine shadows. The letters mention the Order of the Crescent, a name that chills her, stirring a vague dread tied to her scar. She shakes it off, focusing on escape. They splash through a shallow creek, cold water soaking her skirt, and hide in a thicket. The hoofbeats fade, but her chest heaves with fear. Lillian's face is pale, her breath ragged. Sunkawakan squeezes her hand, whispering, "We'll make it." Her resolve hardens. The paper is her proof, but the danger feels closer than ever, a noose tightening around her. Sunkawakan crouches in the thicket, her breath shallow as she listens for Grayson's men. Lillian slumps against a tree, her face ashen, blood seeping through her sleeve from a bullet graze. Sunkawakan's stomach twists, but she rips a strip from her skirt, wrapping it tightly around Lillian's arm. "Hold on," she murmurs, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Lillian manages a weak nod, her eyes glassy. Chaska scans the forest, his jaw clenched. "They'll circle back," he says, voice low. Sunkawakan pulls the letters from her blouse, their ink smudged but readable. One mentions "Trau doi treum," a phrase that makes her scar throb, as if it knows something she doesn't. She tucks them back, her mind spinning. "We need to get these to Iaka," she says, voice firm. Lillian coughs, her voice faint. "There's a cave nearby. We can hide." Sunkawakan nods, helping Lillian stand, her arm around her waist. Chaska leads them through tangled vines to a narrow cave mouth. Inside, damp air clings to her skin, and she settles Lillian on the stone floor, her heart heavy. The letters are safe, but Lillian's fading strength gnaws at her. She kneels, praying silently, vowing to protect her friend and the truth, no matter the cost. Sunkawakan sits by Lillian in the cave's dim light, her friend's breathing shallow. The letters rest heavy against her chest, their secrets burning in her mind. Lillian stirs, her voice a whisper. "I've seen reports. Missing native children, swapped with others. The orders work." Sunkawakan's breath catches, her scar tingling as if alive. She pulls a crumpled note from Lillian's pocket, squinting at faded words. "Crescent scars mark the stolen." Her hand trembles, tracing her own scar, a truth she can't yet grasp. Chaska shifts near the cave entrance, his eyes softer now. "My cousin vanished years ago. Maybe this order took him." His voice cracks, and Sunkawakan's heart aches, seeing his pain mirror hers. She tucks the note away, her resolve steeling. "We'll show Iaka everything," she says, voice steady. Lillian grips her hand, weak but fierce. "Go back to the ranch. Margaret knows more." Sunkawakan's mind races, Margaret's strange kindness flashing back. She nods, but fear coils in her gut. Chaska agrees to scout the path. As they prepare to move, Lillian's eyes flutter shut, her pulse faint. Sunkawakan's throat tightens, but she forces herself to stand. The letters and Lillian's life now her burden, pushing her toward a truth that feels both vital and terrifying. Sunkawakan kneels beside Lillian in the cave, her friend's face pale under a sheen of sweat. The letters press against her ribs, their weight a reminder of the stakes. "I'll get medicine," she whispers, squeezing Lillian's hand. Lillian's eyes flicker open, weak but trusting. "Be careful." Sunkawakan nods, her throat tight, and turns to Chaska, who waits at the cave mouth. "I'm going to the ranch. Stay with her," she says, voice firm despite her trembling hands. Chaska hesitates, then nods, his usual scowl softened. She slips into the forest, twilight cloaking her as she retraces the path to Carver's ranch. Her feet ache, blistered and raw, but the thought of Lillian fading drives her forward. She ducks behind trees when a patrol's lantern swings close, her heart pounding. At the ranch, she creeps toward the house, avoiding the stable's creaking door. The kitchen window is dark, and she eases it open, climbing inside. Her pulse races as she rummages for bandages and salve, every creak of the floorboards spiking her fear. She stuffs supplies into her blouse, next to the letters, and turns to leave, her mind set on saving Lillian. The night feels like a trap, but she moves, driven by a desperate hope to keep her friend alive. Sunkawakan freezes in the kitchen, salve bottle in hand, as footsteps thud upstairs. Her breath catches, and she ducks beneath a table, the letters crinkling against her chest. A door creaks open, and Margaret Carver descends, her lantern casting shadows. Sunkawakan's heart hammers, but Margaret pauses, her eyes scanning the room. "I know you're here," Margaret says, voice low, not cruel. Sunkawakan's stomach twists, and she crawls out, clutching the supplies. "I need medicine," she says, voice steady despite her fear. Margaret's face tightens, but she doesn't call out. "You shouldn't be here," she murmurs, then steps closer. "You don't know who you are, do you?" Sunkawakan's scar throbs, and she snaps. "Tell me." Margaret shakes her head, eyes flickering with guilt. "I can't. Not yet." She hands Sunkawakan a small vial of antiseptic, her fingers trembling. "Go." Sunkawakan grabs it, confusion swirling, but footsteps echo outside. She bolts for the window, climbing out as a ranch hand's shout splits the air. Her legs burn as she sprints into the trees, supplies tucked tight, Margaret's words echoing in her mind. The truth feels close, but danger closer, and she runs, determined to reach Lillian before it's too late. Sunkawakan bursts into the cave, her chest heaving, hands full of bandages and salve. Lillian lies still, her breath faint, and Chaska looks up, relief flashing across his face. "You made it," he says, voice gruff. Sunkawakan kneels, uncorking the antiseptic with shaking fingers, and pours it over Lillian's wound, wincing as Lillian gasps. She wraps fresh bandages tightly, her hands steady despite the fear clawing her heart. "Stay with me," she whispers, brushing hair from Lillian's clammy forehead. Lillian's eyes flutter, a weak smile forming. "Knew you'd come back." Sunkawakan's throat tightens, and she glances at the letters still safe in her blouse. Margaret's words, "You don't know who you are," gnaw at her, her scar pulsing like a warning. Chaska shifts, his voice low. "We can't stay here. Grayson's men are close." Sunkawakan nods, her mind racing. She helps Lillian sit, supporting her weight, and they shuffle out of the cave, Chaska scouting ahead. The forest hums with danger, but the letters and Lillian's life fuel her. She adjusts the supplies, her resolve hardening. Margaret's silence hints at a deeper truth, and Sunkawakan vows to uncover it, even as she fights to keep her friend alive and the Lakota's hope intact. The Lakota camp hums with quiet life at dawn, smoke curling from tents as warriors sharpen blades. Sunkawakan kneels by Lillian's side near a crackling fire, her friend's breath shallow, her face pale as ash. She grips Lillian's hand, heart twisting with fear, and adjusts the blanket over her. The letters tucked in her blouse press against her ribs, their words of betrayal heavy. She pulls them out, handing them to Wiaka, who stands tall, his presence steadying. His eyes narrow as he reads, the camp falling silent around him. "This is real," he says, voice low, and Sunkawakan's chest swells with relief. She brushes hair from Lillian's clammy forehead, murmuring, "We did it." But Lillian's cold skin sends a chill through her, fear clawing at her resolve. Wiaka's gaze softens, a silent nod acknowledging her effort. The proof now lies in his hands, but Sunkawakan feels the weight of Lillian's fading strength and Margaret's cryptic words, knowing her fight is far from over. each moment pushing her toward a deeper truth. Herbs fill the tent with a sharp, earthy scent, the healer's poultice steaming beside Lillian's cot. Sunkawakan sits close, her friend's chest barely rising, each breath a fragile thread. Her fingers tighten around Lillian's hand, throat closing as she fights tears. She pulls the letters from her blouse, their words, the Order of the Crescent and Trau Doi Treum, searing her mind. Her scar throbs, as if echoing Margaret's hesitant gaze, her hint about Sunkawakan's identity. The healer's soft voice breaks her thoughts. She's weak. Rest now. Sunkawakan leans closer, whispering, "You're strong. Keep fighting." Lillian's lips twitch, a faint smile. Wiaka steps in, holding a crumpled note from Lillian's bag. "This mentions a scar, like yours," he says, passing it to her. Sunkawakan reads, her breath hitching. Crescent scars mark the stolen. Her scar pulses, a door to a hidden past. She grips the note, resolve flaring. "Margaret knows something," she tells Wiaka. "I need to go back." He nods, caution in his eyes. Sunkawakan tucks the note away, determination surging, driven to save Lillian and unlock the truth tied to her scar, no matter the danger. Twilight wraps the forest in a gray veil, the air sharp with pine. Sunkawakan stands at the camp's edge, the note about Crescent scars clenched in her fist, Lillian's faint pulse, a drumbeat in her mind. Wiaka assigns Chaska to guide her, his scowl softer now. "Don't be reckless," Chaska says, handing her a dagger. She slips it into her belt, the letters secure in her blouse, and follows him through the trees, heart pounding. Margaret's words, "You don't know who you are," echo, each step fueling her hunger for answers. At the ranch, she avoids patrolling hands, slipping through the kitchen's ajar door. Margaret sits at a table, a lone candle flickering. Sunkawakan steps forward, dagger in hand, voice low. "Tell me about my scar." Margaret flinches, eyes brimming with guilt. "You were taken," she whispers, voice cracking. "I couldn't stop them." Before Sunkawakan can press, Carver's voice booms outside. "Who's there?" Her pulse spikes. She snatches a small box from Margaret's table and bolts for the door, sprinting into the night with Chaska covering her. The box and letters her only clues as Carver's shouts close in. Moonlight filters through tangled branches, casting jagged shadows on the forest floor. Sunkawakan clutches the small box from Margaret's table, her heart pounding as she and Chaska sprint from the ranch. Carver's shouts fade, but her pulse races, the letters and box heavy in her blouse. They duck into a hollow, panting, and she opens the box, revealing a faded photograph of a Lakota child with a crescent scar. Her breath catches, her own scar tingling as if it recognizes the image. Chaska peers over, his voice low. "Looks like you." She nods, throat tight, and tucks the box away. Margaret's words, "You were taken," echoing. "We need to get back to Lillian," she says, voice firm despite her trembling hands. Chaska leads, his steps swift, but a rustle stops them. He signals silence, and they hide behind a tree as a patrol passes. Sunkawakan's fingers grip the dagger, fear mixing with resolve. The photograph feels like a key, but Lillian's life hangs by a thread. She moves again, driven to save her friend and unravel the truth, knowing each step risks everything. The healer's tent glows faintly, the air thick with the scent of sage. Sunkawakan kneels by Lillian, her friend's face ghostly pale, breaths barely audible. She checks the bandages, her hands steady but her chest tight with dread. The photograph and letters rest beside her, their secrets burning. She pulls out a letter, rereading the Order of the Crescent and Trau Doi Treum, her scar pulsing with each word. Wiaka enters, his face grim. "She's slipping," he says softly. Sunkawakan's eyes sting, but she grips Lillian's hand, whispering, "Don't leave me." Lillian's fingers twitch faintly. Sunkawakan shows Wiaka the photograph, her voice shaking. "This child has my scar. Margaret said I was taken." Wiaka's brow furrows, and he nods. There's an elder, Noe, who knows of such things. Her heart leaps, a spark of hope amid fear. She tucks the photograph away, resolve hardening. "I'll find him," she says, standing despite her exhaustion. Chaska volunteers to guide her, his eyes steady. Lillian's fading strength and the photograph's mystery push her forward, a desperate need to save her friend and uncover her past driving each step into the unknown. A cold wind cuts through the valley, stirring dust around scattered boulders. Sunkawakan follows Chaska to a hidden cave, her boots crunching on gravel, the box and letters secure in her blouse. No, an old Lakota with deep-lined eyes sits by a small fire, his presence heavy with years. She shows him the photograph, her voice low. "This child has my scar." Noe's gaze sharpens and he takes her wrist, tracing the crescent mark. "You're her," he says, voice like stone. "Daughter of a Lakota chief, stolen by the order of the Crescent." Her knees weaken, and she sinks to the ground, heart racing. Noe hands her a tattered list of names, children swapped and lost. "They took you to break us," he says. Tears blur her vision, but fury rises, her scar a burning truth. Chaska's hand rests on her shoulder, steadying her. "We'll fight them," he says. She nods, clutching the list, her past no longer a shadow but a fire. "I'll show Wiaka," she says, standing, her voice resolute. The truth of her identity and Lillian's life fuel her. But Noe's warning of the Order's power lingers, a storm waiting to break. Dawn paints the Lakota camp in soft gold, tents glowing under the rising sun. Sunkawakan stands before Wiaka and the elders, the list of stolen children trembling in her hands. Her scar burns, a reminder of Noe's words. She's the daughter of a chief, taken by the Order. "This is their plan," she says, voice steady despite her racing heart, holding up the list. "They stole children like me to destroy us." Wiaka's eyes narrow, scanning the names, and gasps ripple through the crowd. Chaska steps forward, his voice rough. "My cousin's name is here." Sunkawakan meets his gaze, her chest tightening with shared pain. She tells of Carver's plot to frame the Lakota, her words fierce. "We can stop them, but we must act." An elder nods, his face grim, and Wiaka raises a hand. "You speak truth." Her heart lifts, but a young warrior, eyes sharp, slips from the crowd, unnoticed by all but her. Suspicion pricks her, but she pushes it aside, focusing on Wiaka's call to prepare. She grips the list, resolve flaring, ready to fight for her people and Lillian, though a shadow of doubt lingers about the warrior's swift exit. The camp buzzes with warriors sharpening spears, their voices low and urgent. Sunkawakan moves among them, her heart swelling with a sense of belonging, the list and photograph safe in her blouse. She approaches Wiaka by a fire, her voice earnest. "The Order stole our children to break us. We need every Lakota to fight." Wiaka's face softens, and he gestures to the crowd. "Speak to them." She steps onto a crate, her scar pulsing as she raises the list. "I was taken, like many of you lost kin. Carver and the Order want our land, our lives. We stop them together." Cheers erupt, and even Chaska nods, his eyes warm. An elder shares a story of her father, a chief who defied soldiers, and tears prick her eyes, pride mixing with grief. She feels their trust, a weight and a gift. Wiaka assigns her to plan defenses, and she sketches maps in the dirt, her hands steady. But the memory of the warrior slipping away nags at her, a warning she can't shake. She vows to watch closely, her determination to protect her people and honor Lillian's fight burning brighter, even as the threat of betrayal looms. Dust swirls in the afternoon heat, the camp alive with the clatter of weapons. Sunkawakan kneels by a map, tracing paths through Black Hills with a stick, Wiaka at her side. "We can ambush Grayson here," she says, pointing to a narrow pass. Her voice is firm, but her stomach knots, Lillian's fading face in her mind. Chaska joins, suggesting traps with rocks, his tone steady. She nods, grateful for his shift from distrust. A warrior brings her a bow, and she practices, her fingers clumsy but determined, arrows thudding into a tree. Wiaka watches, his approval silent but clear. She feels her father's spirit in the bow's weight, a connection to her past, but a shout breaks her focus. Scouts spotted Grayson's men moving early. Her heart sinks, the plan unready. She suggests reinforcing the pass, and Wiaka agrees, sending runners to gather more warriors. A sudden storm gathers, clouds darkening, and rain threatens their traps. She grips the bow, frustration rising, but Chaska's hand on her arm steadies her. "We'll adapt," he says. She nods, her resolve hardening, ready to face Grayson's attack, though the storm and the traitor's shadow cast a heavy doubt, pushing her to fight smarter to save her people. Flames light the horizon, smoke curling from a distant Lakota village. Sunkawakan stands frozen at the camp's edge, her heart sinking as the scent of burning wood reaches her. Wiaka's voice cuts through, sharp and urgent. Carver attacked early. Her stomach twists, guilt flooding her for not warning them sooner. She grips the list of stolen children, her scar pulsing with anger. "We can't let him win," she says, turning to Wiaka. His eyes harden, and he orders the warriors to protect the main camp. Sunkawakan suggests a counterattack, using the Black Hills' narrow passes to trap Carver's men. Wiaka nods, but his face is grim. "We're spread thin." She volunteers to lead a small group, her voice steady despite her fear. Chaska steps up, bow in hand, and Lillian's weak voice echoes in her mind, urging her to fight. She checks the photograph in her blouse, a reminder of her stolen past, and rallies a handful of warriors. They move toward the hills, rain starting to fall, her boots slipping in mud. The burning village fuels her resolve, but the early attack and Lillian's fading strength weigh heavy, pushing her to outsmart Carver before more lives are lost. Rain pelts the Black Hills, soaking Sunkawakan's hair as she crouches behind a boulder, mapping the pass in her mind. Wiaka gathers warriors nearby, their faces set with determination. She points to a steep ridge, voice low. "We block them here. Use rocks to trap them." Chaska nods, tying ropes to loosen boulders, his hands swift. She helps, her fingers raw from the wet cord, her heart pounding with the need to save Lillian and her people. A young warrior teaches her to aim her bow better, and she fires a practice shot, the arrow grazing a tree. Pride flickers, but a scout shout breaks through. Carver's men are close. Her chest tightens, the plan barely set. She suggests hiding archers on the ridge, and Wiaka agrees, sending them up. She climbs with them, rain stinging her face, and checks the photograph and letters, still safe. The storm worsens, lightning flashing, threatening their traps. She whispers a prayer to her father's spirit, feeling his strength in the bow. Chaska signals from below, his eyes steady, and she takes position, arrow knocked. The enemy's approach echoes, and her resolve hardens, ready to turn Carver's ambush into their victory, despite the storm's chaos and the traitor's shadow. Thunder rumbles as Carver's men march into the pass, their boots splashing in mud. Sunkawakan perches on the ridge, bow taut, rain blurring her vision. Wiaka signals from below, and she releases an arrow, striking a soldier's shoulder. He falls, shouting, and chaos erupts. Chaska's ropes snap, sending boulders crashing, trapping some men. Her heart races, pride surging, but a rifle shot grazes her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. She grits her teeth, firing again, her aim steadier. Below, Wiyaka leads warriors, their spears flashing in the storm. Carver's voice roars, rallying his men, and Sunkawakan spots him, her scar burning with hate. She aims, but a warrior pulls her back as bullets pepper the ridge. Lillian's face flashes in her mind, her friend's life slipping. She shouts to Chaska, "Cut them off!" He nods, leading a charge to block the pass. A soldier breaks through, lunging at her, and she swings her bow, knocking him down. The Lakota push forward, driving Carver's men back, but losses mount, bodies in the mud. Sunkawakan's arm throbs, but she stands tall, the photograph and letters fueling her. The battle tips their way, but Carver escapes, and she vows to chase him, her fight for Lillian and her people fiercer than ever. Rain slows to a drizzle, the pass littered with fallen soldiers and Lakota warriors. Sunkawakan kneels by a wounded warrior, her arm stinging from her own graze, and ties a cloth around his bleeding leg. Her heart aches as she scans the muddy battlefield, Carver's men retreating but her people's losses heavy. Lillian's fading face haunts her, and she stumbles to Wiyaka, voice hoarse. "We stopped them, but Carver escaped." His jaw tightens, but he nods. "You fought well." She pulls the photograph from her blouse, its scarred child a mirror of her pain, and grips it tight. Chaska approaches, his shoulder bloodied, and hands her a torn letter found on a soldier. It mentions the Order of the Crescent, ordering the attack. Her scar pulses, fury rising. "We need to end this," she says, eyes blazing. Wiyaka agrees, calling for a council to plan the next move. Sunkawakan carves Lillian's name into a nearby rock, her fingers trembling, a vow to keep fighting. The victory feels hollow, with Carver free and Lillian dying, but she stands, ready to hunt him down, her resolve afire against the grief threatening to consume her. The council fire crackles, casting shadows on Wiyaka's stern face. Sunkawakan sits among the elders, the stolen children's list in her hands, her voice steady. Carver's working for the Order. They won't stop. She shows the new letter, its words chilling. "Eliminate the Lakota resistance." Chaska's eyes darken, and he slams his fist on the ground. We hit their camp. Sunkawakan suggests a larger ambush, rallying nearby tribes to trap Carver's forces. Her heart pounds, thinking of Lillian, barely clinging to life. Wiyaka nods, sending runners to the Cheyenne and Sioux. She helps sharpen spears, her hands aching, and practices her bow, arrows hitting closer to the mark. An elder gifts her a beaded necklace, whispering, "Your father's spirit guides you." Tears prick her eyes, but she wears it proudly, feeling her roots deepen. A scout reports Carver's camp location, and her pulse quickens. She checks the photograph, its crescent scar a call to fight. The plan forms, but a warrior's nervous glance reminds her of the traitor. She vows to stay sharp, her determination to save her people and honor Lillian burning brighter than her fear of betrayal. Hooves thud in the distance, dawn breaking over the Lakota camp. Sunkawakan tightens her grip on her bow, standing with Wiyaka as Cheyenne warriors join, their faces painted for battle. She outlines the ambush. We strike Carver's camp at dusk, use the hills to surround them. Her voice carries, steady despite her racing heart. Chaska distributes arrows, his nod a quiet respect. She checks the letters and photograph, safe in her blouse, and ties the necklace tighter. Her father's spirit, a steadying force. A Sioux scout confirms Carver's men are unprepared, lifting her spirits. She leads a group to scout the camp, crouching in brush as soldiers laugh around fires. Her scar throbs, anger flaring at their arrogance. She signals retreat, but a twig snaps under her foot, and a soldier glances her way. Her breath catches, but he turns back, and she exhales, heart hammering. Back at camp, she refines the plan, assigning archers and spear throwers. Lillian's weak smile flashes in her mind, urging her on. The traitor's shadow lingers, but she pushes it aside, focusing on the attack. Her resolve hardens, ready to crush Carver's forces and protect her people, no matter the cost. Dusk settles, the hills cloaked in shadow as Sunkawakan creeps toward Carver's camp, bow in hand. Warriors fan out, silent as ghosts, their breaths misting in the cool air. She signals, and arrows fly, striking soldiers before they can shout. Chaos erupts, tents catching fire as Lakota and Cheyenne charge. Sunkawakan fires, her arrow piercing a soldier's chest, her heart pounding with fierce pride. Carver's voice bellows, rallying his men, and she spots him, sword gleaming. She aims, but a rifleman fires, and pain sears her thigh. She stumbles, blood soaking her skirt, but grits her teeth, firing again. Chaska pulls her behind a crate, his eyes urgent. Stay down. She shakes her head, spotting Carver retreating. We can't let him go, she gasps, pushing forward. Wiaka's spear. Throwers cut off the enemy's escape, and the camp falls. Sunkawakan limps after Carver, her wound burning, but his horse gallops free. She collapses, fist pounding the ground, victory tainted by his escape. The photograph in her blouse feels heavier, a reminder of the fight still ahead, but her people's strength fuels her to rise again. Starlight glints off the smoking ruins of Carver's camp, warriors tending wounds by firelight. Sunkawakan binds her thigh, wincing, blood sticky on her hands. Chaska kneels beside her, offering water, his voice gruff. You're stubborn. She manages a weak smile, but her heart sinks as she scans the captured soldiers. Carver's gone. She pulls out the letters, finding a new one among the camp's debris, signed by the Order, naming Carver their agent. Her scar flares, and she shows it to Wiaka, voice fierce. He's their pawn. We need him. Wiaka nods, ordering a search. She limps to a captured soldier, dagger drawn, and demands, Where's Carver? He sneers, but fear flickers in his eyes as she presses the blade closer. He's riding to Crescent, he spits. Her pulse races. A lead at last. She suggests tracking him, and Wiaka assigns Chaska to lead a small team. The photograph's child haunts her, urging her to end the Order's grip. Despite her pain, she stands, ready to chase Carver, her resolve afire against the looming threat of Crescent, and the traitor still hidden among them. Firelight flickers in the Lakota camp, casting long shadows on weary faces. Sunkawakan sits with Wiaka, the captured letters spread before them, its words chilling. The Order meets at the old mill, Blackwood commands. Her scar pulses, and she grips the photograph, the child's face fueling her resolve. We can catch them, she says, voice steady despite her throbbing thigh. Wiaka's eyes narrow, but he nods. Risky, but we need proof. She suggests sneaking into the meeting to record their plans, her heart racing at the thought. Chaska volunteers, handing her a small knife to hide in her boot. She practices moving silently, her limp easing as she focuses. An elder ties a protective charm around her wrist, whispering of her father's courage. The memory of Lillian's weak smile drives her, and she tucks the letters tighter, vowing to expose the Order, but the traitor's shadow looms, a whisper of doubt. She memorizes the mill's layout from a scout's sketch, her mind sharp, ready to face Blackwood and end his schemes, knowing one misstep could doom her people and Lillian's fading hope. Moonlight bathes the old mill, its rotting beams creaking in the wind. Sunkawakan slips through a broken window dressed as a servant, her knife hidden in her boot. Her heart pounds as she carries a tray of cups, blending among hired help. Politicians and soldiers gather, their voices low, and she catches Blackwood's name, her scar burning. She edges closer, slipping a pencil and paper from her apron to scribble their words. Finish the Lakota. Secure the gold. Her hand shakes, but she keeps writing, proof of their evil in her grasp. A general's gaze lingers, and she lowers her eyes, pulse hammering. She drops a cup, the clatter deafening, and a guard steps toward her. Another servant, a young woman, spills wine, distracting him. Sunkawakan exhales, nodding thanks, and moves to a corner, catching Blackwood's voice through a crackling speaker, cold and commanding. No face, just power. She tucks the notes into her blouse, next to the photograph, and slips out, her limp aching but her resolve iron. The mill fades behind her, but the guards stare and the traitor's threat cling, pushing her to deliver the proof before the order strikes. The forest hums with crickets as Sunkawakan races back to camp, the notes and photograph pressed against her chest. Chaska meets her at the edge, his relief clear, but his voice urgent. Grayson's men are moving. Her thigh throbs, but she pushes past him, finding Wiaka by the fire. She hands him the notes, breathless. The order plans to wipe us out. Blackwood's leading it. Wiaka's face hardens as he reads, and he calls the warriors. Sunkawakan's heart lifts, but Lillian's fading pulse haunts her. She checks on her friend, kneeling by the cot, and whispers, "I'm close." Lillian's eyes flutter, a weak nod. Sunkawakan returns to the council, suggesting a trap for Grayson's men, using the hills again. Wiaka agrees, and she helps set snares, her hands steady despite exhaustion. The servant's quick help at the mill nags at her, a flicker of hope against the traitor's shadow. She sharpens her arrows, the necklace from the elder grounding her, and prepares for the fight. Knowing Blackwood's reach and Lillian's life hang in the balance, her resolve a shield against the coming storm. Dawn breaks, the hills silent save for the rustle of warriors. Sunkawakan crouches behind a ridge, bow ready, her thigh wound a dull ache. Wiaka signals, and she scans Grayson's approaching men, their rifles glinting. She fires, her arrow striking a soldier, and chaos erupts. Warriors charge, spears flashing, as she knocks another arrow, her heart pounding with fierce pride. Grayson's voice roars, and she spots him, her scar flaring with hate. A bullet grazes her shoulder, blood seeping, but she fires again, hitting his arm. Chaska pulls her down, shouting, "Stay alive!" She grits her teeth, spotting Lillian's notebook in the dirt, dropped in the chaos. She crawls for it, bullets whizzing, and tucks it with the letters, vowing to honor her friend. Wiaka's men close in, trapping Grayson's forces, but he slips through, mounting a horse. Sunkawakan aims, her arm shaking, but he rides off. The battle slows, their side winning, but her chest tightens. Grayson's escape a bitter blow. She binds her shoulder, the photograph's weight heavy, and stands, ready to chase him, her fight for Lillian and her people unbroken. Victory chants echo in the hills, but Sunkawakan's heart is heavy, Grayson's escape gnawing at her. She limps through the battlefield, helping a wounded warrior, her shoulder and thigh screaming. Chaska finds her, his face blood-streaked, and hands her a captured satchel. Inside, a letter from Blackwood orders Grayson to end the Lakota resistance. Her scar burns, and she shows Wiaka, voice fierce. "Grayson's going to Blackwood. We can follow." Wiaka nods, his eyes grim, and assigns a small team. She checks Lillian's notebook, finding a map to a nearby fort, likely their meeting place. Her heart races, a chance to catch them both. She washes her wounds, wincing, and ties the necklace tighter, her father's spirit guiding her. Chaska offers her a fresh bow, his voice soft. "You're one of us." Tears prick her eyes, but she nods, the photograph and letters fueling her. The traitor's shadow fades in the warrior's unity, and she prepares to track Grayson, her resolve afire against Blackwood's power, ready to end the Order's grip and save Lillian's fading light. Whispers of victory ripple through the Lakota camp, but a heavy silence lingers near the healer's tent. Sunkawakan kneels by Lillian, her friend's face gaunt, breaths barely stirring the air. She grips Lillian's hand, heart twisting, and tucks the photograph and letters closer, their weight a vow. Outside, Wiaka gathers warriors, holding Blackwood's letter. Sunkawakan stands, voice raw. The Order's lies are spreading. They're calling me a traitor. Her scar pulses as she hands him her notes from the mill, proof of their plans. Wiaka's eyes harden, and he calls for a messenger to send the notes to town printers. She suggests a public stand, rallying other tribes to expose the Order. Chaska nods, his face set, and volunteers to guard the camp. A sudden shout breaks through. Margaret Carver approaches, alone, her hands raised. Sunkawakan's grip tightens on her knife, Margaret's past betrayal sharp in her mind. "I want to help," Margaret says, voice trembling. Sunkawakan hesitates, but Lillian's fading pulse pushes her to listen, her resolve teetering between distrust and the desperate need for allies against the Order's growing lies. Moonlight bathes the camp, casting Margaret's face in stark relief. Sunkawakan faces her by the fire, knife still in hand, her scar throbbing. "Why now?" she demands, voice sharp. Margaret's eyes drop, guilt etched deep. "I hid your truth, helped the Order take you. I was afraid." She pulls a ledger from her shawl, names of stolen children scrawled inside. Sunkawakan's breath catches, the photograph's child mirrored in those pages. "This can expose them," Margaret says, voice breaking. Sunkawakan's heart wars between anger and hope, but Lillian's life hangs thin. She takes the ledger, nodding to Wiaka. "Send it with the notes." Margaret steps closer, whispering, "Your mother fought for you." Tears prick Sunkawakan's eyes, but a gunshot splits the night, and Margaret falls, blood blooming on her chest. Sunkawakan dives behind a tent, heart pounding, as Grayson's men attack. She fires an arrow, striking a soldier, and warriors rally. But Margaret's ledger lies safe in her hands. Grief and fury surge, and she fights back, vowing to honor Margaret's sacrifice and Lillian's fading light with the truth. Dawn breaks, the camp scarred from the night's attack, warriors binding wounds. Sunkawakan clutches the ledger, her shoulder aching from a fresh bruise. Wiaka stands tall, organizing defenses, and she approaches, voice firm. "Grayson's men came for this. We need to trap them." She suggests fortifying the hills, luring the Order's forces into a final stand. Wiaka agrees, sending runners to allied tribes. She checks the photograph, its crescent scar a burning coal, and helps pile rocks for barricades, her hands raw. Chaska brings news. Blackwood's at a nearby fort. Her heart races, a chance to end it. She sharpens her bow, the necklace from the elder grounding her, and prays for Lillian, whose breaths grow fainter. A scout reports Grayson's men advancing, and she spots the traitor among them, a Lakota warrior from the council. Her stomach twists, but she signals Wiaka, pointing him out. The trap is set, and she takes position, arrow nocked, ready to face Grayson and Blackwood. Her resolve a shield against betrayal and loss, fighting for her people and Lillian's last hope. Hooves thunder through the hills, dust rising as Grayson's men charge. Sunkawakan perches on a ridge, bow taut, her eyes locked on the traitor leading a flank. She fires, her arrow piercing his shoulder, and he falls, shouting. Warriors spring from hiding, spears flashing, as she knocks another arrow, her heart pounding with fierce resolve. Grayson's men falter, caught in the trap, but Blackwood's voice echoes from a fortified cart, cold and commanding. Her scar burns, and she aims, but bullets force her down, dirt spraying her face. Chaska pulls her behind a rock, his voice urgent. "He's mine." She shakes her head, spotting Grayson rallying troops. She fires, grazing his leg, and charges, dodging bullets, the ledger and photograph fueling her. Wiaka's men close in, and she tackles Grayson, pinning him, dagger at his throat. "Where's Blackwood?" she snarls. He laughs, bloodied, but points to the cart. She binds him, heart racing, and signals Chaska. The cart's empty, Blackwood gone, but Grayson's defeat lifts her. She stands, blood and sweat mixing, ready to hunt Blackwood. Her fight for Lillian and her people fiercer than ever. Twilight settles. The battlefield quiet, save for warriors' low chants. Sunkawakan binds Grayson's wrists, her hands steady despite her aching wounds. Wiaka approaches, holding a satchel from Grayson's horse, filled with the Order's plans. Eliminate resistance, secure Black Hills. Her scar flares, and she hands him the ledger, voice fierce. "This name's the stolen. We show the world." Wiaka nods, ordering the satchel sent to printers. She checks the photograph, its child's face a mirror of her own, and feels her father's spirit in the necklace. Chaska reports Blackwood's trail leads to a town, and her heart leaps, a chance to end him. She visits Lillian, kneeling by her cot, and whispers, "We're close." Lillian's eyes are closed, her pulse faint, tearing at Sunkawakan's heart. She stands, resolving to lead a team after Blackwood, but Wiaka warns of his power. The traitor's capture eases her, but Blackwood's escape looms large. She sharpens her dagger, the letters and ledger her weapons, and prepares to chase him, her resolve afire to save Lillian and expose the Order's crimes, no matter the cost. Soft chants fill the Lakota camp, a mournful melody for the fallen. Sunkawakan stands among the tents, the ledger and photograph pressed against her chest, her wounds aching but her heart steady. Wiaka gathers the elders, and she hands him the satchel of the Order's plans, her voice clear. "This proves their crimes. We must share it." He nods, sending runners to town with the documents for printing. She kneels by Lillian's cot, her friend's face still, breath gone. Tears spill as she whispers, "You fought with me." She carves Lillian's name into a wooden pendant, tying it beside her elder's necklace, a vow to carry her forward. Chaska approaches, his eyes soft. Cheyenne and Sioux are joining us. Her resolve strengthens, and she organizes a gathering of tribes, sharing the list of stolen children. Families weep, recognizing names, and she feels their pain, her scar a shared wound. The printers confirm the story's spread, and her heart lifts, but Blackwood's escape gnaws at her. She grips the photograph, ready to honor Lillian and her people by ensuring the Order's end, a fire burning against the grief. Starlight glints over the Black Hills, the camp alive with tribal unity. Sunkawakan addresses a crowd of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Sioux, the ledger open in her hands. "The Order stole our children, our future," she says, voice ringing, holding up the photograph. "We expose them together." Warriors cheer, and elders nod, their faces etched with resolve. She reads names from the list, her scar pulsing as families embrace, some weeping for the lost. Wiaka hands her a printed pamphlet, the Order's crimes in bold ink, spreading to towns. Her chest swells, but a scout reports Blackwood's men rallying in a nearby valley. She suggests a final stand, uniting the tribes to block his escape. Chaska sharpens her arrows, his hand brushing hers, a silent promise. She visits Lillian's grave, laying the pendant down, and whispers, "This is for you." The necklace from her elder grounds her, and she feels her father's spirit, urging her on. Blackwood's shadow looms, but the tribe's strength fuels her, and she prepares to lead, determined to protect her people and cement the Order's downfall. no matter the fight ahead. A cold wind sweeps the valley, warriors' breaths misting as they gather. Sunkawakan stands with Wiyaka, the photograph tucked close, her bow ready. She outlines the plan. We surround Blackwood's men, cut off their retreat. Her voice is steady, though her heart races, Lillian's sacrifice heavy. Joska leads a flank, his nod firm, and Sioux archers take the ridges. She spots Blackwood's banner, her scar burning, and signals the attack. Arrows fly, and warriors charge, her own shot striking a soldier. Blackwood's voice roars, commanding from a hill, and she aims, but a spear grazes her side, blood soaking her tunic. She grits her teeth, firing again, and Chaska's men close in, trapping the enemy. She sprints toward Blackwood, dodging blades, and tackles him, dagger at his throat. Your order ends now, she snarls. He laughs, cold, but her blade presses harder, and he yields. Warriors bind him, and her heart soars, the tribe's unity unbreakable. The photograph feels lighter, but her wound throbs, a reminder of the cost as she stands tall, ready to face his trial. Morning sun warms the camp, Blackwood bound and guarded by warriors. Sunkawakan limps to Wiyaka, her side bandaged, the ledger and satchel in hand. We've won, but we must show the world, she says, voice fierce. He nods, sending the evidence to courts and printers, Blackwood's confession scrawled among them. She speaks to the tribes, naming the stolen children, her scar a badge of survival. Families reunite, their tears mixing with hope, and she feels her mother's spirit in their embrace. Chaska carves a monument for Lillian and the lost, and Sunkawakan adds her name, tears falling. The necklace grounds her father's legacy alive. She learns Lakota songs, her voice joining the camps, and vows to teach the children their history. Blackwood's trial begins, his power crumbling, but a letter warns of his allies. Her resolve hardens. The photograph a reminder of her fight. She stands among her people, a bridge to their future, ready to guard their land and honor the sacrifices that brought them here. The Black Hills glow under a rising sun, their peaks sacred and unbroken. Sunkawakan climbs a ridge, the ledger shared, the order's crimes exposed in every town. She holds the photograph, its child's scar her own, and feels her parents' presence, their love woven into her necklace. Wiyaka names her a leader, and she accepts, voice steady, vowing to protect the Lakota's future. She visits Lillian's monument, laying wildflowers and whispers, "We did it." The tribes unite, rebuilding, their songs echoing through the hills. Children learn their names from the list, and Sunkawakan teaches them, her scar, a story of survival. Blackwood's allies fade, his empire dust, but she watches the horizon, dagger ready. Her people's strength, Lillian's sacrifice, and her father's spirit fuel her, a fire against any threat. She stands tall, the hills behind her, a daughter of the Lakota, her heart whole, fighting for a legacy that will never be stolen again.